Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small businesses and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is a YouTube creator who took his love for food and cooking and made it into a YouTube channel. I've seen him go from the beginning of his channel to now over 350,000 subscribers, a supportive Patreon community helping him secure his future, as well as also not to mention an exciting thing sprouting up in the future. He may not know that I know this. Please welcome my friend, Mark Thompson, the Sauce Stache. What's going on, Mark?
What's going on, Biggie? Thanks so much for having me on this. This is so excited that you're doing this podcast. I am just amped about it.
Well, I appreciate it, man. We talked about it. I remember talking with you about it at one of my events, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? So, but yeah, I basically got off my ass. Instead of talking myself out of it, I decided to jump on in. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with me during my lunch break. As I'm finishing up my lunch, I guess since I'm eating lunch, I guess my first question is going to be, what's your favorite sandwich?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I mean, so right now, honestly, I mean, we just had it last night, and it's probably just, I really love, and I've kind of just fallen in love with like the Beyond Burger. Like, yeah. I mean, Monica and I, we eat them all the time, and like that's kind of like my go-to. Other than the Beyond Burger, you know, I like to do, oh man, I'll tell you, there is Quickly Boba over here on Colonial. Okay. They have like the banh mi's that they make are out of this world. And for any of the like the plant-based people, they have these like nuggets that they're like, I mean, I haven't had chicken in years, but they're the best chicken nuggets that I've like ever had. They're so really good. Like I don't care what you eat. Like if you're just like, man, I eat, you know, like whatever it is, like those chicken, like the veggie chicken nuggets that they have are wild.
Have you tried to replicate them yet?
You know what? It's one of the things. So there's a bunch of companies that make versions of them. Like Whole Foods sells like a General So chicken, you know, and it's I swear it's the same thing. It's the same like soy protein fiber that they're using. It's something that I'm going to replicate one day when I really nail it, like when I figure out exactly what they're doing, because it's whatever they're using isn't like very commercially available. So I have to find what that source is. But one day I'll replicate it for sure.
Okay. So for folks that have not heard about Sauce Stache or know about Sauce Stache, let's talk about your channel. I know you've been doing it for over 4 years. Yeah. What made you start it?
I memean, probably a lot of things. I've always wanted to do something creative. I've always wanted to do something, you know, that's what I've always tried to do. I've always wanted to do something like entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. Before Sauce Stache, I was like, you know, in my head, there's always like a thing. So I had like a Jeep Wrangler and I was trying to make these like Jeep Wrangler parts, and my Instagram account was the Cheaper Jeeper, because I would make like plastic tail light covers, you know, and I never sold any. I think I actually sold one pair. I take that back. I sold one pair of these tail light covers. Before that, I wrote an app for the App Store. It was an app called Solar Screen on the iPhone, and it would help you to where you didn't get sunburn. I was doing like Jeep videos and, you know, just like kind of messing around. I wasn't really like an editor yet, but I mean, I've always just wanted to do something like that. I've always wanted, I was in a band years ago, and like, I was like, I'm going to be a famous rock star. And I mean, and it was just always like really interesting. Like the entrepreneurial life was just always something that was like really, really interesting to me. And I would say probably 5 or 6 years ago, I was getting really big into YouTube. I mean, it was just like watching some of these YouTubers like Casey Neistat and Peter McKinnon and like the vlog people, you know, like the people that are like running around New York City with their cameras and like just making really cool videos. And I was like, dang, it's like, I could do that. You know, it's like, I see what these people are doing. They're entertaining people. It's just, you know, telling stories. And I was like, I could totally do that. And I know this is like a very long version of it, but when Monica and I first met, my fiance, she, and you know, Monica, she was running a pretty successful yoga blog. I mean, she was doing it for a long time, and she ended up, we both worked at the same place, and we both didn't like our jobs at that place, but Monica left, and she went on to just do this yoga blog. And I was like, there was like multiple things happening, because Monica and I weren't dating when she first left. And we were just like acquaintances at the time, but we would like talk, and I was like, oh, I'm going to start a blog too. And so there was like this thing of like, it was almost like I was like jealous of her,
Yeah.
but then it was also like damn, like how, I mean, not even like jealousy, but just like how cool is that this girl, like, she wanted to do a yoga blog, she started this yoga blog, and she left the job that we both couldn't stand, and she was able to just go off and do this yoga blog and, you know, make money and live. And so when we first started dating, I was like, I really want to do a blog. Like, I want to do, so I want to do what you're doing. You know, it's like, we need to figure out what that is, if it's like a Jeep thing or if it's something. But I made a lot of dinners. I like cooking, you know, it's
Yeah.
fun to me. It's not like, it was never a passion. The cooking wasn't a passion, but I do love food. You know, food is like, it's something that I get excited about. And I get excited about trying new things. And Monica said, she's like, why don't you do a blog that's just based off of your sauce recipes? Because every time I would cook dinner, I would make, you know, some sort of like fun sauce to go along with that dinner. And she didn't eat like that. She didn't cook like that. Monica was
Yeah.
very much like, you know, like making fried rice and stuff. But it's like, I would make fried rice and then make some sort of like, you know, white sauce to go along with it, you know? So she was like, why don't you do a blog to go along? So instead of doing a blog, one time she was away at her parents, and this was very early on in a relationship, but she was away at her parents, and I took my cell phone, put it on the kitchen cupboard, and I just filmed my hands. And
Yeah.
I made like, it was a vegan Chipotle mayo. You know, it was just egg, or like just mayo, and then like Tabasco sauce. That's all it was. It was really simple. And then I made like fried rice, and then I poured it over the fried rice. And I called it Sauce Stache, and I put some like funky music behind it. And I was like, you know what? At that time, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make 30-second, really quick, snappy sauce recipe videos, and it's going to be huge. But it ended up just evolving from there. But that's how it all got started.
Yeah,
Was,
and
you know,
and
through
that's kind
sauce
of
recipes.
interesting because the way it evolved, and from watching your videos, because I remember, because I actually met you when you started it. So because
Yeah.
I remember, because Monica and I think we even met at a blog convention, at a
Yep.
Florida blog con, and that was like the big thing, was like, you know, I when I saw it, I remember seeing like there's like an evolution, because I know originally started with sauces, then you
Yep.
started doing kind of like the lunch break
Yep.
kind of concept, like, hey, I'm in the middle of my lunch kind of thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna show you my
Yep.
lunch type of thing. And then it started going with like internet trends,
Mhm.
because, you know, you've always been kind of very like, I would almost like, I would almost say like you're very kind of almost handsy, in the sense of where you're a tinkerer, you like to take things apart and look into them. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
trying to figure out like, oh, I'm going to figure out the recipe of this internet trend, and I'm going to replicate it.
Yep.
And then from there, I noticed, you know, because and when I mean there, and when I say that, I mean, I'm talking like, this is going on for, you know, you're doing this for a few years. And I've
Yeah.
really noticed kind of like in the last year, it's really evolved very plant-based,
Yeah.
and vegan, plant-based, you know. And like, so how did that evolve, you know, how did that get evolved? Like, how did you evolve from there? Was it a dietary thing, or was it like you decided to go
Well,
vegan, or what was that?
so it was, so Monica and I are both mostly pescatarian. When we first met, we were probably more vegetarian than anything. And that's kind of just, I mean, without putting any labels on it, but yeah, like my diet and Monica's diet mostly consists of plant-based food. So the channel was always secretly vegetarian. Like, even when it was like sauce recipes, the sauce recipes were always vegetarian. I didn't like talk about it, but that's what it was. You know, I used just mayo, I used this stuff.
Yeah.
And then like when it evolved into the lunch break, again, it was all pescatarian, you know. And like one of my original burgers was like, the like original videos was like a vegan smash burger, you know, because it was just what I was eating for
Yeah.
lunch.
You
Um,
made a shrimp po' boy one. I remember, because I
yeah.
drooled over that one. It was
Yeah, oh
amazing.
my God, yeah. The po'
So good.
boys was like, I love po' boys
Oh
and
yeah.
like banh
Delicious.
mi's, and like, yeah, that would probably be my favorite sandwiches,
Hmm.
po' boys and banh mi's. But so yeah, it was always in the back of my mind that that's the stuff that I wanted to promote, was mostly plant-based, mostly you know, I didn't want to promote any meat products. So when I ended up going into like doing like more trends, and that was just honestly, like, shifting into the trend thing was just me trying things out, you
Yeah.
know, like what's going to work, what's not going to work. and that was fun. That was cool. That there was a lot of stuff that got a lot of views. But like what I really enjoyed was the exactly what you said, was figuring out how things are made. And because that's always been me. Like I'm a tinkerer. I think that's why I like YouTube so much, is because I love the part of it is the high of figuring out, like, how does the algorithm work? How does the audience interact with videos? Like how does like what things trigger, like relevancy and sharing, and like, so what, so it's like diving into figuring out how things work and diving into figuring out how like recipes work, kind of like started moving into the direction that it's in now, which is all plant-based, 100% vegan. And that kind of just came at the direction of my audience, and a few things of like, I told Monica, I remember the conversation too. Like we were talking about like the trends, and I was like, I don't really understand, if I'm going to keep making these videos about trends, like why does somebody specifically want to watch me make this video? If a bunch of people are doing it. But if I can do something and provide value, as far as like, if I can figure out what Beyond is doing exactly to make the Beyond Burger, what Impossible is doing exactly to make the Impossible Burger. And that's when I started like breaking down the ingredients labels, and like started ordering, like I was like, okay, so let me find, how can I order methyl cellulose? How can I order, these different textured proteins? How can I order? And so it was like kind of like that. And it was going a wholly plant-based on it. Was That's where I was able to be the most creative creative I could be,
Yeah.
like, because there's no limitations on it. Like it's all new. I'm not classically trained chef or anything. So it's like, I could do what I want to do
Hmm.
and really figure it out. And, I have 100 failures, but then I will have one, piece of bacon that comes out like a piece of friggin' bacon. And it's just like, blows my mind. And it's like, that's what I get to make the video about. So it's the most exciting. I feel like it's where I get to make the most difference, and it's where I get to be the most creative. So it's kind of cool the way it worked.
No, I totally agree with that. And it's been really fun to be able to see. I love it because I get to watch. I've been able to watch, just as your friend, be able to see like the growth and like the how it's launched. I mean, I know, kind of like the big ones, the big videos for you, like the mochi, and then like the grilled watermelon ham. I mean, like
Yeah.
all those have been like amazing. I mean, it's just really interesting stuff. And like I will tell you that a lot of these, I mean, obviously I'm not vegan, but a lot of these I'll watch because I was like, man, that looks good. I was like, I would eat that. I was like, if he made it, and I would eat it. If Mark makes it, I'm eating it, is what I would say to
That's
myself.
awesome.
So which is exactly what you want, because I mean that's kind of what it is. It's appetizing. It looks delicious. And the best part is you're honest about it when you review it. Like when you take that bite, you pretty much give an honest answer, like, yeah, this isn't it, or yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, that's the one. And so it's
Yeah.
great to be able to see that, to be able to see that
Thanks,
honesty
man.
with you doing it. But I also know it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of hard work that you're putting into it. What advice would you give for people wanting to start creating content?
I think the thing is, follow exactly what you want to do. It's you have to, one of the big things is, and I say this to a lot of people because I see a lot of creators, and this is very specific to YouTube, but I see a lot of people that are like, okay, I'm starting my YouTube journey and I'm making these videos that I think are going to be popular, and I'm titling them the way that I think the algorithm's going to like it. And and honestly, it wasn't until I started, as I was growing and as I was figuring out, and I grew from the very beginning until the final shift, I was able to, like, a steady growth. But it wasn't until I let go of everything I thought I knew about, like, creating content, of like, doing the trends, matching what the other people are doing, or, like, following the I need the best search engine optimization. It wasn't until I started saying, okay, how can I be as creative as I possibly can? How can I put out the stuff that I think, is going to be as entertaining and as engaging as I possibly can be? Um, and just kind of like let go of a lot of the things that I learned early on, as far as like SEO and like all of these things, and just title things and show things and do things in ways that people will like. So I think for creatives now, it's if you can make content for people and always be thinking of your people, like just always have that in the back of your mind, that I think those are the creators that are the most successful, is the people that are like, what is what is my audience, even if you don't even have an audience at that moment, like what is my visioned audience, what do they want to see, and I think that's, or hear, if you're on a
Yeah.
podcast, it's like,
Yeah.
what do they want to hear? And if you could really think of that and be creative and stand out, then you'll be wildly successful.
No, that I think that's very accurate. I think that's a lot of times it's almost to the point where you're like, I'm creating content for you, and I want it's for you, not for me. It's for you, and I want to be able to provide you something for you to be able to enjoy. Um, so you do a lot of videos. Where do you get all your inspirations for these videos? Like, I know there's a lot of research. Like, what are you doing? Like, where are you finding these things? Where are you kind of annotating or keeping it all together? Like, where are you logging all this? What are you doing?
So I mean, it's 24 hours a day. It's 7 days a week. I mean, it's all the time. Um, Inspiration for things I mean, honestly, it comes from dreams sometimes. Like, I mean, I guess I'm to the point now to where I make so much stuff that I'm like, I'm actually just actively thinking about it even when I'm sleeping. But, there's, I'm looking everywhere, I'm like, I'm fully immersed into my genre, I guess you would say. Like, it's not, I know a lot of people do like research to where they'll go and they'll find, and this is actually really good just for anybody,
Yeah.
like go and find 15 creators that are making content that you want to create, like 15 creators that are making content that you really like, and then just pay attention to what they're doing and find patterns, and say like, oh, when all of these people have done these similar things, that really works, and that's part of it. I do that quite a bit, where I go through and I look at all of the creators in the industry and I say like, what is everybody doing? And sometimes there's patterns of that. And like right now, that's kind of the pattern that I'm currently on. Like I'm
Yeah.
kind of, I'm in like a creative exhaustion period. So it's like, okay, let me see what people around me are doing. Let me gather inspiration from that. And then a lot of times, like some of my biggest videos, the inspiration just came from, I was walking through the grocery store or through like the local Asian market. And I'm like, man, what is this? And I'm looking at it and I bring it home and I cut it open and I'll dehydrate half of it. I'll throw some of it in a thing and just like, what do these textures look like? And I start pulling it apart. And so it's like a lot of the inspiration just comes from like just buying a bunch of randoms. Like, I went to the Asian market the other day and I picked up a few daikon radish. I picked up a cocoa bean pod. I don't know if I'm going to make a video about a cocoa bean pod or, besides chocolate, what
Yeah.
else can I make with a cocoa bean pod? But I still
Yeah.
bought it because it was there. And I was like, that might be kind of neat to like mess with, and, it's, I'll go to the grocery store and see, dozens of different mushrooms. And it's like, well, that's a completely new mushroom that I've never even heard of. Let me buy that and try it out. And then luckily I feel like I've gotten to the point now to where I get like a lot of comments. People are like, hey, I'm going to be doing a video. Somebody commented about a week ago, because I did, I don't know if you know seitan, but it's like wheat meat.
Mm-hmm.
It's meat made out of like wheat gluten. It's really wild. But somebody was like, I would love to see you make a burger fully out of gluten. So like the bun and the burger and and in my head I was like, well, that might actually be kind of just like a fun video.
Yeah.
It's not showing anybody anything, but it might be entertaining enough to where I can take a bag of flour and use the gluten to make the burger, use the starch that I washed away to make like a vegan cheese, and use extra starch to make a vegan bacon, and then just use more flour to make the buns, and actually just do an entire, bacon triple cheeseburger, but the main ingredient and everything is just a bag of flour. So that's going to be like the upcoming thing. So
That's pretty intense, man. That is that's definitely pretty intense. But and that's one of the things, like I've always wondered, because like I'm always coming up with ideas and I'm always like I pretty much use everything from like my phone.
Yeah.
I have like notebooks all around. I have post-it notes. I have like I use Google Keep because I'll just like throw that in on either on my computer or something like that, and I'll just like throw ideas in, which sometimes is great, and then sometimes I feel like it's like a total. I'm just like throwing everything somewhere, and then it's like trying to find
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
It's always which is great sometimes when you go back and start reading some of these things, and you're like, oh wow, I totally forgot about this.
I think my Apple like notepad, because that's what I use most, is like
Yeah.
Apple Notes. And I mean, I probably have 2,000 notes just from like the last year, and then like I'll go through and like flip through them and delete them and stuff. But I keep a constant notepad. I mean, and it's just never ending. And every note is a new idea or new recipe. But then like, when I'm just like, sometimes there'll be like 5 or 6 notes, like your ideas that kind of pop up. So I have like one notepad that specifically just has like this month's ideas, and I might use some of them, or I might not use any of them, but it's just a constant recycle of ideas and concepts.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what happened when I started Deli Fresh Threads. I had like my own setup of like my whole concept was like, okay, this is like packaging ideas, and I had them like
Yeah.
separated as different sheets of like t-shirt ideas and blog post ideas
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And it was like I literally was just keeping it all together there, trying to figure it out to see how it is. You're pretty much doing a video almost every week, right? Is that pretty much the consistency on it?
So the goal is I do 2 videos a week. So my rule to myself is, if I don't have a good video, I'm just not going to release it. There's a lot of people that are like, consistency is key, that's the only way to grow. But the problem is that pressure ends up really screwing up a lot of people, because then you end up releasing bad videos, and releasing a bad video is worse than releasing no video. So there's times where I can keep up. I think January through March, I was able to do 2 videos a week pretty much every single week. Recently, like I said, I've had some like content exhaustion. You can only
Yeah.
do so much, and so it's I filmed a video about a week ago, and like Monica and I got to the taste test, and we went and it was like, oh, this is terrible, so I got up, turned the cameras off, deleted the video. Nope, it's not going to come out, so there's no video this week. I'll film tomorrow. I'll use one of my other ideas. So it's, I try to do 2 videos a week. That's the goal.
So I know a lot of people say they want to be YouTube stars and they want to do it for a living. And I obviously you're doing it for a living. So I kind of want to give like kind of a peek behind the curtain. Like, what's something that you think people don't know or understand or realize that what YouTube content creators deal with on a day-to-day, or just deal with in general, that, they think it's fun and exciting, but what's something that maybe people just don't understand or realize?
Well, it's crazy. So like I talk to a lot of creators. I mean, like some of my best friends now are creators. Like I talk to creators every single day, and everybody has a different journey. Like, I mean, I have friends that, that have done, really well. And sometimes I'll tell them about like my stresses, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the easiest job in the world. And it's like, I know one of my creator buddies, he's like, I put out 3 videos a week and I work 3 hours a week, and that's it. It's like, God, for me, it hasn't gotten any easier. And I think a lot of people think that. A lot of people look at creators that have like, 100,000 subscribers. I know I did. I know when I first started, I was looking at creators that had 10,000 subscribers, and I was like, man, if I could just get there, that's where things get easier. That's where, I can start putting out videos and they just always get views. But that's not the case. You just get better at figuring out what videos get views. If I were to release a video today, that I released, say, 3 years ago, and the quality of the video and the title of the video, it would probably perform just as well as it performed 3 years ago, and it probably would only get a few thousand views. So I think a lot of people think that, as you grow, things just get easier and easier and easier. And when you get to 1 million subscribers, well, now it doesn't matter what you make and you just put it out. But it does, you have to actively be on the ball. It's a hard job. I will say that this is honestly the hardest job that I've ever had in my life. I wouldn't give it up, because I do enjoy it. And there is a certain level of like, there's like a high, there's like it's like a winning mentality. It
Mhm.
feels good when you release a video
Yeah.
and it's ranking really well and people are enjoying
Yeah.
it and people love it. It's like this, it's a huge, it's a good push. But it is a really difficult job. I think people look at it and they think that they're going to grow and be these like, be able to just, it's going to be this like crazy, luxurious
Yep.
life. But it's like, man, it's, even 400,000, 350,000 followers, it's like, it's, it's actually gotten, there's so many more levels that it's even more complex. But I wouldn't give it up for anything. I think anybody that
Yeah.
wants to like go after this life, like definitely go after it. It's worth it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it doesn't, it stays about the same. I have one of my good friends that she has a YouTube channel and she a few million subscribers. And we always joke around that like YouTube, once you hit 100,000 subscribers, should just give you your silver play button and a therapist. Like, like here's your play button, here's a therapist, continue on to 1 million, at 1 million, you get a live-in doctor,
The pressure's on. I mean, I look at it. I look at some other YouTube, YouTubers that we mutually know, and I
Yeah,
look and I see them, and I'm like seeing them produce, like come up, and then it's like I'm in my brain, I'm thinking to myself, you're constantly having to come up with something.
yeah.
Like, so the fact that you're doing two a week is so intense. I mean, it definitely, there definitely is the fear of burnout, because
Oh yeah,
there's only like, it's like I got to come up with the next thing. What do I do? And it's like, and I get it, because in some aspect of it, but for me, it's a totally different animal than yours, because like for me, it's like I have a concept for a design for a shirt, and I come up with this shirt and I work on this shirt, and literally by the time, and I don't know if you feel the same way, by the time you release the video, but by the time my shirt's released, I'm spent. I'm ready to go on the next one. It's
yeah,
like, because it took so long to go through the process, even though I'm excited about it, I'm also ready to like, let's go to the next one.
yeah,
And so then you don't even appreciate or get to enjoy the release of what you did, because you're looking to go to the next one. And then, so yeah, it's,
yeah.
I can only imagine that. And one of the things that you talked about was about like thumbnails,
Yeah.
and is gonna, and I don't know why, but as I was scrolling down, like I was like scrolling through like some of your videos on, like on the thing on YouTube and like on your channel, and I know they're super important. I was kind of just curious, once you figured out how, like what to do and how it worked, did you go back and edit like your thumbnails on the other ones, so therefore there was a consistency? Like at one point, did you do that, or did you just kind of say, no, I'm gonna let it, this is going to be the flow? Because I mean, obviously I saw there's a consistency with the sauces being the same.
Well, so there's no formula, and it's always changing. I mean, there's like, it's, people evolve, people like, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like if you're creating content, you're like, I found the thing that wins, you're only going to last so long, because that thing that wins is only going to be winning for a very short period of time, and then people are going to get bored of it. It's just like, I've only watched 4 seasons of The Walking Dead, and it's kind of like, okay, there's zombies and people running away from them. I'm done with the show. They didn't evolve for me. They just kept doing the same thing. So I stopped
Yeah.
watching. But so it's, you have to constantly evolve, and changing thumbnails. Thumbnails to me is like, it's almost more important than the video, because if people don't click on your thumbnail, like if your thumbnail doesn't gain somebody's attention, they're never even going to see the video.
Yeah.
So and I have gone through, and I have the mentality of, if I put out a video and it doesn't perform, I always do my best to see like, okay, maybe there's something wrong with the title. Let me figure out a new title. Or maybe the click through on the thumbnail is not doing so great. So let me see if I can, change the thumbnail, try some different colors, try some different text, and see if this will gather attention.
Yeah, no, no, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
What tips or advice have you gotten along the way? I know
Oh.
I know of one that I remember hearing or knowing, but what are some tips and advice that you gotten along the way that kind of helped you when as you were creating YouTube videos?
Like, so a lot of people, I've definitely talked to people about like the thumbnails. I've definitely talked to people, about like personality. Like that was one, I think that's probably the one that you're talking about that you've heard, because I talk about that a lot. A good friend of mine that's a creator. When I initially started, it was just, showing my hands. And he was like, you know what, man? He's like, that stuff works great on Facebook. It works great on like these really quick platforms where you're scrolling. He's like, but on YouTube, show your personality, get on camera. And that's when I started Lunch Break, was I jumped on
Yeah.
camera and I was like, okay, let's do this little, quick 15-minute show while I'm, on my break from work. Um, so I really think like there is, and this isn't true for everybody. There's always, this and there, like I said, my good friend who's has a cooking show and she doesn't show her face. It's just, like a recipe show, but she pulls in millions of views and she's doing phenomenal. Um, but I do think for a lot of people, it does help if you can show your personality. Now, I will say with her videos, her personality comes through her voice in like when she's describing the recipes. She's very like bubbly and fun and entertaining, and she says funny
So
things.
even though you can't see her, you can hear her and you can feel it. You can see it. No, that makes total sense.
It makes total sense. And at the time, like I wasn't even doing any of that. I just was doing recipes and I had like the text flying up on the screen. So there was really not a whole lot of personality there. There was nothing for people to be attached to. And it's when you're trying to grow, like the way that people will subscribe is when they attach to your personality, when they, you have to be a magnet for people's personality. So it's, the more you can show that, the more you can be, and I say it's just your honest self, but just turn the volume up a little bit. It's like don't try to not be you, be yourself, but just if you had like an extra cup of coffee that day, so it's like when you get on camera, just, amp it up a bit,
Well, and it's funny because I preach that a lot to my friends who own small businesses, because I tell them, I'm like, create content. Now, when I say create content and videos, I'm probably saying more like on the like Instagram stories, more of the short verse version of it, rather than full on production of a YouTube. But I do tell them, I'm like, people need to see your face. Like that's part of it. I think when people see your face, see your personality, experience you, see who you are, like the person behind it, there's a connection there. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I think you're successful as well, because you can tell there's a genuine excitement. There's a genuine excitement when it comes to that, and seeing you actually do it and be part of it, you're going along for the ride, so that's kind of one of the big things about it. And so this works out really well because you and I have had numerous conversations about me wanting to do YouTube and I should do YouTube. And I've also been preaching a lot about progress versus perfection. So, and you've said a few times, like, hey, if it's not good, don't. So I definitely want to like, and I keep kind of telling folks like, stop talking about it, start doing things.
Yeah.
However, YouTube is really tough, man. And so with that, it's like, especially, and I know like, especially going more like the thought process, you want to go more long form. Because obviously the longer you're on the channel, the better. YouTube likes those things. I know you've gone through a progression in the sense that you originally started with one phone. Now you have like, I mean, if you ever see Mark's setup, I mean, it's quite impressive. I haven't seen his new one, but I know he's got like 3 cameras. I know he's known to do recipes over again just so that he could do B-roll. So that's like a totally opposite area. I mean, granted, I'm also talking to folks to start things. You're actually doing this full time, but can you kind of give me an idea of like, what's your thought process on that? Because obviously we don't want to scare people. I don't want to scare people with the realities of like, hey, you just can't like if you're going to just make a video and throw it on there, then for that, you might as well do it on like Instagram or do a Facebook Live. But if you're going to do long form, then obviously there's going to be editing and there's all those things involved. So what do you recommend for that? Because for me, that's a big one. It's like, I'd rather do short ones, but the editing and all those things are tough. What do you recommend for that when you're trying to battle that whole thing? Because I don't want to create another hurdle for someone to not want to do something.
Well, so it's not about the equipment. I mean, it's really not like because I recently switched to 4K. So I think like the last few months, all my videos are 100% in 4K. And I didn't get any more views for that. I just personally wanted to have better content out, but it didn't change the viewership. There wasn't like this, like, oh, now it's 4K, and I'm getting like, hundreds of thousands of extra views. Yeah. There was no change in the amount of people that I didn't even receive extra. I thought somebody would notice like, oh, you're 4K now. No, there wasn't, like nobody cares. I do think, and YouTube is better for long form, in my opinion, even though they're now releasing this whole like YouTube shorts, but it doesn't necessarily matter as much as it did. There was a period of time where it was like, you have to make 10-minute videos, but now it really is. YouTube has like, I think the algorithm over the years, and just for my short time, my only like 4.5 years that I've been doing it, I've seen the tweaks that have happened, and now what is happening is it is based more on what the audience watches. So when you are doing something, you can totally make a video that goes mega viral from a cell phone. It's your delivery. It's how the story gets delivered. The big thing when you first start is just make as many videos as you possibly can and try to get really good at telling a story and getting your point across. Like, and be very diligent about what you don't release. Like, I think that's like when I'm editing, it's mostly about what am I removing from this? Like what doesn't need to be here? What doesn't provide any value? Like, is this line just for me? Like, am I just trying to like, like a lot of like the entrepreneurs are like, make sure, the gurus will say like, make sure within 5 seconds, you tell them to subscribe. Make sure within, 15 seconds, you tell them to follow and click the like button. And I'll tell you, I started seeing my numbers pop way more when I stopped asking people to subscribe, when I stopped telling people to like my videos, and when I took everything, because that stuff's for me. Like that's me being selfish, like, hey, subscribe to my channel. That's not for the viewer, And so I think if you could start figuring out ways to do that, and it takes time. Like, I think you have to make, and I've heard other people say this is advice that I've gotten, like, you have to make 100 videos before you really understand how to tell a story. There's not very many people that know how to entertain people, and it's because if everybody knew how to entertain people, then everybody would be actors and everybody would be in entertainment. And it's like, so it takes a lot. So, like for people that are just starting, like, just make videos, jump right into it, like immediately jump into it, make a video, watch it. You're going to love it because it's your video and you're going to show your friends, but then start looking at it very critically, like really I think the big thing that I've told myself, and I always tell myself, and sometimes maybe I'm a little bit too hard on myself, is I don't like really love anything that I create. It's always very like, okay, now so this video is done. This came out good. The audience enjoyed it. Now, how do I make the next one even better? So it's like and I see people in these YouTube groups that are like, I make really great videos. I make the best thumbnails. My thumbnails are just as good as this channel. Why am I not getting views? And I always comment, I tell these people, it's like, well, that's exactly why you're not getting views, because you think you're making the best content. You think you're making the best thumbnails, but you're probably not, because if you were, you would be getting a ton of views, So you be kind of, you have to be critical. I think that's what the thing that makes this really hard is how self-critical you can personally be.
But I also think, and one of the things that I really like that you said was, you got to make 100 videos. I think we live in a world, and I see this all the time. This is literally a marathon. There is no sprint on here. I know some people do go viral, or if they're celebrities, obviously it's a lot easier to be like, oh, subscribe to my channel, and they have all these views. But you've really have, I mean, you're a great story to be able to kind of illustrate that, because where you started and where you've gone. I mean, you actually have people, you went from, and that was another thing that I found very interesting was, and we can talk a little bit about it, was, at one point you were doing this, you had a full-time job, you were working and also doing videos. Then, things happened where you're like, well, you're no longer working. And now you're like, I'm going to take this jump to go and do this full time. And that takes a lot for you to be able to say, you know what, when that happened, how long were you doing Sauce Stache that you were like, hey, I'm ready to take this next step?
So that was 2.5 years ago. I was laid off from my job. I was laid off after I worked for the company for 15 years, and I got laid off, and that's always unexpected. At the time, I just signed a deal with Facebook.
And I was going to ask you about that.
And I was in what was called the Facebook, the Creator Launchpad program. So I had, I think I had like 500 followers on Facebook, and Facebook said like, hey, we're going to help you grow, So I had that happening. My YouTube channel, this was 2.5 years ago, so it was probably around 50,000 subscribers, I would say.
Wow.
Around that range. And so like the YouTube channel was making a little bit of money. It definitely wasn't enough to make ends meet. The Facebook page was starting to bring a little bit of money. And again, probably wasn't enough to make ends meet. But at the time, um, I felt that the direction everything was going, that if I did put in, I was like, okay, well, I don't have a job, and I can either go and get a job and again do something that I probably don't want to do. I don't, like, I mean, no, I mean, I don't know who absolutely just loves, I mean, some people do
Yeah.
actually. That's, a lot
Do
of
what you
people do
love. Do
actually,
what you
but
love.
like, yeah, do what you love. I
Yeah.
didn't. I wasn't doing what I
Yeah.
loved, and and it was really hard for me saying like, well, this is the experience that I have. These are the jobs that I can get, and if I go out and get another job, I'm just going to be in the same boat again. So why don't I put every possible amount of effort that I possibly can behind this and just try to guarantee its success? Um, so that's what happened. And I had, there was, I think there's a certain level of determined, like I was determined, and I was also, uh, I was pretty sure, I
Yeah.
was pretty positive that I could do it. And I think having that was enough motivation to keep it going,
Yeah.
you know?
You also put the time and effort in, because I mean, this was now your baby, this is your livelihood, so you're putting in your
Yep.
work, you're working like almost every day of the week,
Oh yeah,
in the
yeah.
beginning to try to get to that point. And then one other thing that I thought was very interesting, and I was going to point out, and I'm glad you brought up the Facebook, was the importance of posting, not making it one of those like auto shares that was one of the things that I've heard from you, and I've heard you talk about how it's important to, like, even if you make a video on YouTube, to actually embed the video, or not just like put a link on your Facebook, but actually going to Facebook and actually uploading it onto Facebook. Because
Yeah.
obviously at the end of the day, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all those, they just want you to stay on their page. So they don't
Yep.
want you to go somewhere else. So why not go that route and actually just take the time and upload it, rather than just do a quick share, upload it to the site, and then now you have more visibility. One of the things that I totally love, because since you've obviously grown so much, like, you actually have like an agent that actually helps you. And has that provided, like, when that came about, like, did that provide you like that much? I mean, obviously it provides you, I'm assuming, other opportunities for you to be able to, kind of like PR wise, be able to talk to other people, be in front of other people. Has that provided you that much more opportunities as well, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah. I mean, Colin, my agent, he's amazing. I mean, it was a life changer getting him. Um, so coming up, I was really big into doing like the brand deals and working with brands. That was part of my business plan, was that um this is how I saw my friends do it who were on YouTube. And I was like, you know what, this is how they made money, was they had ad revenue and they had brand deals. And I was like, that's the route that I want to go. And that was the route that I saw a lot of creators going. And so worked on that. And early on, you would reach out to brands, you would send out emails, and you would get like, you would send out 100 emails and get one response. And then as you grow, you start getting contacted by agencies, and these agencies will, I worked with loads of different agencies, to where they would, it would be one off, and then they would go away. They would do one brand deal, and then the agency would go away, and you would never hear from them again. um, but I started working more with one particular agency. And it was like over the course of a year, he called me and we worked. And essentially, he was initially just working on working with brand partnerships, just helping me get more and better brand deals. And after about a year, he called and we had a conversation. He was like, well, why don't we just work together? Why don't we just exclusively, just do this, and I'll be your agent, and you can set up a whole thing with me, and everything just kind of goes through him. And that's been great. Yeah. And then he, out of the blue one day, he called me and he was just like, are you interested in writing a book? I'm talking to a publisher. And then I was like, wow, okay. And so it's been pretty great, and he's definitely he's a good friend now. He's somebody that, like, I talk to about like the business. He's very into the YouTube business. And he works with lots of other creators besides me, like I'm not his only client,
Yeah.
but he works with a ton of other creators. And so it's just like getting insight with them, and just getting to talk to him, and hearing, the business side of being a creator, that, I don't know if I would have ever have been able to really get into, like, um, because nobody, I remember somebody early told me on, like, I was like, well, how do you get brand deals? How do you do this? Like, what do you do? Like, how much money do you charge? And because none of that information's out, there's a ton of like little articles that like, but like, there's nobody that really says like, hey, this is like the good way to get brand deals. You see like these little things, but it's tough to decipher. And somebody was like, nobody's going to tell you how to run your business. And I was like, man, that is like a really hard truth.
So I have two things before my lunch break ends. So one is, um, and I'm going to tie it in now because it was a question I was going to ask towards the end, but I'll ask it now because you brought it up. So I mentioned earlier in my intro that you have things sprouting up. And then obviously you mentioned your agent and you mentioned about book publishing. So I have seen in my research that Mr. Mark Thompson here is going to be having something called a book on Amazon available. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's called Making Vegan Meat. It's a plant-based food science cookbook by our very own Sauce Stache, and it's going to be available from what it looks like July of 2021. Man, congratulations!
Thank you so much, man.
That's freaking awesome, man. I was
really
super excited when I saw that. I was like, man, I'm like, and then I saw it, and I'm like, this is hardcover. I'm like, this is a book. I'm like, this isn't no digital in a Kindle. This is like straight up book, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's been working on it for about a year. And it's a process. I'll tell you, it has been a process, but it's exciting, and I can't wait. Yeah, it's coming. It's going to be around mid-July, is the release, and I'm going to start promoting it here and over the next few months. And there hasn't been like an official announcement. I'm terrible with that. Like, I know there's supposed to be this whole and stuff, but I'm like, oh, I'm making a cookbook. I'm just too excited about it. Like, I can't yeah. So yeah.
Well, yeah, man, that's a big deal, man. That's phenomenal, especially since you have so many recipes that you've provided and shown. Like, it's already out there. Why not put them in a book and make it and bound it, and then have it available for people to be able to watch and be able to read it and flip through and be able to see it. Best part is and it's almost like your videos are advertising the product itself as well, because if a lot of those are actually from videos, they can see them and they're like, man, that looks so appetizing. Oh wait, I have the cookbook, I have the recipe right here.
Yep. There's a lot of the stuff. So a lot of the stuff that's in the book is stuff that's already been in the videos, but then there's like the thing that was really cool that I really wanted to write with the book, because so for me, like, and I try to tell people this, and maybe I don't know if I get it through the videos enough, but I do it in the comments a lot, but like, I really just, the whole thing is like, just experiment, just like play with your food, like have fun with it. Like, try my way, but then try another way. And I see a lot of people saying that. It's funny, 'cause like, I don't know why I have this thing about like, when I'm making these like plant-based meats, I kind of make them fairly plain. Like I want it to taste like a steak, and then you can season it and flavor it and make some cool thing to put on it. And like, so it's neat when I get like these Instagram pictures from people where they make these like insane dinners out of like like the little piece that I created, like the shrimp then that they then like the plant-based shrimp that they bred and turned into some whole other world. So the thing with the book was I just wanted people to be able to experiment with the stuff that I've already made. So like, there's like a ton of different, like, if you can't find these ingredients, try these ingredients, or like, something that I haven't tried yet, but this is the way that this process works. So there's like, I'm even like just kind of throwing out things that I haven't even worked on yet, just I've experimented with, but it's like, hey, why don't you try it? Like, you experiment and see what you come up with. So I think that's the whole food science part of it. It's not real science. It's Mark science. It's just experiment, have fun. So I'm hoping people really catch on with that with the book, and they'll try some of the recipes, but then they'll make their own version of it. So I'm excited.
I'm very excited for you. When I saw that last night, I was like looking at it, and my eyes lit up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to ask him about this. This is freaking awesome. So super, super excited for you. So the airways are yours. By all means, tell folks where they can watch your videos, how they can follow you, how they can support you.
Thanks, man. So follow me on Sauce Stache everywhere except on Instagram. I am the Sauce Stache guy. I don't know why I did that, but that's the way that I went. But yeah, so yeah, Sauce Stache, and it's sauce like sauce and stash like mustache. And yeah, I hope you enjoy if you check me out.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
definitely check him out. I'll do it for you. Subscribe to his channel, and definitely leave comments and likes on it for him. And then, do you have any last thing? Also, do you have any final words of advice to my listeners?
And just I think anybody can be a creative or a creator. Like anybody can do it. Like if you have the inkling or even the idea, like like, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel, or I want to start, like, just do it. And this is kind of like on the other end of it, but I will say I think that most people that haven't succeeded on YouTube only haven't succeeded because they gave up too soon. And so just keep making content. I would have given up 5 times by now, but I just kept going, keep going.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for Mark of Sauce Stache for being on the show and having lunch with me. Definitely make sure to check him out on YouTube, Sauce Stache. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. If you want to support me, definitely check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads, and do some shopping and tell your friends. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion.